everyone. Welcome to Lemon Live at 5. Welcome to the Don Lemon Show. We're so glad that you're here. I want to talk to you about something that I have been saying for a while. And Americans are finally coming around to it, finally. And I've been saying this a long time, for years, really, that you can be informed without being inundated. You can be informed without being inundated. And I think it's gone beyond that recently after the election. I think some people just don't even want to hear it. I know they don't even want to hear it because this is what the information that we have been getting from the newspaper sites, from the podcast sites, from the streaming sites, and especially from cable and broadcast television. No more push alerts, no more podcasts, no more news podcasts, no more cable broadcasts. This is one of the headlines. This is from a new Washington Post piece, which outlines how Americans, predominantly liberal Americans, by the way, how they're checking out from the news, not checking out the news, but checking out from the news. MSNBC has averaged, this is pretty staggering, 550,000 viewers, 550,000 viewers since Election Day. That is a 39% decline compared with the network's average in October. Okay, that is total viewers, a 39% decline compared with the network's average in October. In prime time, MSNBC's audience has declined 53%. That's according to Nielsen data. Remind you, those used to be the demo numbers during the height of cable. Actually, during the first Trump term, election, campaign, and then the administration. When I was in prime time, those were demo numbers, not total audience numbers. CNN, by the way, which has been struggling in the ratings for months, has also had falling viewership. Again, this is all according to the Washington Post since the election. The cable news network, according to them, has averaged 413,000 viewers since last Wednesday, right after the election. That is a 22% decline from its October averages. And then in prime time, they're pretty close to MSNBC. The decline stands at 43% and getting lower, as a matter of fact. Why is this happening? I think they've lost trust. I think in some way, the broadcast folks have lost credibility. And even some of the podcasters who didn't want to tell the folks the truth about what was happening with the election, what was happening with Joe Biden. And then people know this time around what is happening. Okay? So let me just read some of this article that we have here. Okay? We'll start with the beginning of the article. And so folks are saying, right after the election, they immediately turned off. I'm going to read the beginning here. So there is a young man who said he usually started his day, ended his night, started by watching television all day. And then all of a sudden he said, I would end my evening with watching CNN's Anderson Cooper. And then he says, but no more. No more push alerts, no more new podcasts, no more cable. His last name is Wilson. He says, I pretty much stopped on a dime. He consumed a lot of news about the election, but stopped with the MSNBC broadcast the day after Trump's win. It was a Monday morning quarterbacking he said he couldn't stand for. He couldn't stand for everyone saying, well, this is what happened. This is what Kamala Harris did wrong. So there is part of that. He said that blaming the candidate for some obvious problems with the electorate, like misinformation, disinformation, he said he couldn't deal with it. Here's the plot twist. This all feels different, obviously, from 2016, because as I said, that was the height, that was the zenith of cable news. Trump shocked everybody, himself included, according to this report. A businessman turned reality TV star with no political experience and, a lot of baggage had become president. The nation, plot twist, had officially entered unprecedented territory. How would it go? And then he goes on to say that, each new day, the article says there would be something new, that would be, something interesting, something crazy. People would just yell at the television. But the win this time, he said he paid very close attention. It was kind of outrageous things that I should say, it was kind of the outrageous things that he was going to do. But now, these folks are skipping their regular news podcasts and they're listening to more audiobooks because this feels like the sequel to a horror movie she had already lived through, according to one person that the Washington Post had interviewed. So now it is just the opposite of what they thought. Everyone had said, I don't know if you guys realize this, everyone had said, well, if Donald Trump wins, whew, man, that's going to be great for cable news. It's going to be great for broadcast news. It's going to be great for the news industry in general. Doesn't appear to be the case because people are like, I'm over it. I don't want to deal with it. I'm tired of going and looking at the accident as we pass by it on the interstate. I'm tired of the rubbernecking. And they're just out. They are just out. One person who, his name is CC Rogers. I think he sort of exemplifies what many, those, however many 40, 30, 40, 50% of people who have tuned out of cable news and the like. I think he represents them. Take a look at CC Rogers. He's done with cable, he says.
What's up, my brothers and sisters? I'm done with cable news. Yep, that's it. That 24-hour news cycle is not good for me. As I sit back and analyze the situation, this election was bad for me. Maybe not for many of you, obviously, but I've been in worse situations. I was a baby, but I remember Nixon and Watergate. I was a teenager in college who had to register for the draft under the Reagan administration.
Pause that, please.
So why am I stressing over this?
So he makes up a very good point for those of us who are old enough to remember Nixon, right? The news, there was no cable news then, but you can better believe, and I remembered, I was a kid, that the Watergate hearings were on television constantly, it seemed, although we got a reprieve because they didn't really want to, preempt those soap operas during the middle of the day, but sometimes they had to. But also our news went off, the television went off at midnight. And then you got nothing. It ended with the national anthem at midnight, and then it was over. And people did not have to deal with it as much. Talk radio wasn't as big, at least conservative talk radio. There was talk radio. I remember listening to KMOV in the middle of the night. We'd get the signal. KMOV is in St. Louis, and we were in Louisiana, and we'd listen. But not like it is now. Mostly it was talk about aliens and what's happening, strange happenings. It was just a different time. But now he's right. And then during Reagan, I too, as a young man of that age, had to register for the draft of possibly going to war. We have had things that we were concerned about. But as the proliferation of cable news, we became so into it. And not only just cable news, but the internet as well. Because the internet really has become cable news, podcast, streaming, digital, and so on. But CC Rogers brings up some very good points. Let's listen.
This last election, this is not new, different, but not new. Right. Yes, cable news. The constant negativity, the talking points, heads arguing. It's enough to make everyone anxious. Listen, call me naive, but I believe most Americans are good people. This prolonged exposure to negative news have led many to increased stress and even depression. Think about it. When you're constantly bombarded with war, poverty, and political turmoil, it's easy to feel overwhelmed and helpless.
He's right. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and helpless. And I think finally people are starting to realize that. I too had thought, a Harris presidency would be the end, the death knell for cable news. But actually it's the opposite. Look, what many people predicted even about the outcome of the election is the opposite of actually what happened. But I think it is the opposite now. And who was sitting around watching all of that? Mostly liberals hoping and maybe wish casting for a Kamala Harris win because they know what was on the other side of a Donald Trump win. They had been through it before, and this time it could only get worse. Let's keep listening to CC Rogers.
Start to see the world as a scary, unpredictable place. Cable news has become like that friend who always texts you about every little drama in their life. So I'm stepping back for a minute, definitely for the next 4 years. And I suggest some of you do the same. Study shows that information overload can lead to difficulties concentrating, important decision making, and even physical health problems. Okay? That's my 2 cents. Peace.
Thank you, Cece. I appreciate it. I think Cece brings up a very good point because folks want their mental health. Folks would like their mental health. Later in the week, I'm going to talk to someone who's going to talk to us about that mental health and give you even more tips about what to do as it relates to the election and also keeping your mental health. As I said, being informed without being inundated. He's not the only one who's wondering, is this all good for me? Is this all good for me? So check out this. This is from a Threads post of someone who said that they can't do it as well. They're done with it. She says, I can't watch US media anymore. It's hard to watch news, shows, movies, and even true crime from a country that has proved itself to be so unserious and in opposition to the values it claims to uphold. Many people are disappointed about what happened. They're not, necessarily sad or freaked out. It's just that they're disappointed in their countrymen and their fellow men and women, and they're actually disappointed in the news media because, again, they felt that they were either being drawn into drama or that they were being misled. Drawn into drama or they were being misled. It's getting people are starting to wonder, the era of cable news, is it over? I think that folks believe that it is over. If you look at what happened recently, Comcast, which owns MSNBC and CNBC, and its finance-focused sister network, CNBC, right, announced that this week that they are spinning off most of its linear cable news into a separate company. The problem for MSNBC and CNBC isn't that they aren't profitable. This is what CNN is reporting about MSNBC, about Comcast, about CNBC and that spinoff. The channel still contributes strong profits to Comcast's bottom line. The problem is that they no longer look like growth businesses. So they're spinning them off. To some extent, this is a story about ideology. CNN and MSNBC really cater to left of center viewers who seem dejected right now about President Donald Trump's election to a second term. Those viewers appear to be looking away rather than gearing up to start a second run of resistance media consumption. And that is going to be the problem. A big problem is, I don't know if it's a big problem, but I think what's indicative of what's happening with cable news and the trust, just in a time when folks believe that they need the news media to be the strongest, right? That it is showing signs of weakness, that it is complying in advance to an administration that many believe is dangerous to democracy. Days after the election, Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough over on MSNBC announced to the world that they had gone to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President Trump. And that freaked out a lot of people, especially their viewers. Like, what the hell is going on? What is wrong with them? They had been the resistance media. Now, listen, I have nothing against Joe and Mika. I actually watched their program. I like them. I like Joe Scarborough a lot. But I think that their calculation was possibly not the best calculation or the most accurate calculation to go down and meet with Donald Trump. I don't think it was obviously their ratings have been in decline ever since, down double digits. They started to decline the day that they announced, the morning that they announced it on their program. Here's the thing though. If there is a counter story to all of this, let me get to that. Some viewers may be angry, though. I'm going to stick with Joe and Mika for a second. Some viewers may be angry that there was perceived hypocrisy in what Joe and Mika did, calling Trump a fascist for years and then going down to Mar-a-Lago to kowtow to the president-elect. They think that it is perceived hypocrisy. I think they made a calculation, as I was saying, that it was the best thing, saying that they wanted to change their approach. They made a calculation that it was best for their program, what was best for them, and perhaps they thought it was best for their viewers. I don't know. But the viewers obviously don't think so. Americans don't think so. And that is, their story sort of sums up the cable industry the broadcast industry, and even the news industry overall in general right now. The counter story now. The counter story to cable news decline is Fox News. Get this, since the election, the conservative leaning networks ratings are up. Trump seems intent on building cabinet people pulled from its orbit. There are a lot. Pete Hegseth was there. A number of people who made the appearances all the time. Matt Gaetz, before he dropped out, right? He was a nominee. He's on Fox News all the time. And there are others as well who go on Fox News all the time. So it's not too much of an exaggeration to say that Trump, that his White House is shaping up to be the Fox News White House. That is true. Engagement, so their ratings are up big time, or as Trump would say, bigly. But it's not just, this isn't a story, again, just about cable news and broadcast news. Engagement on social media with news articles cratered over the past 3 weeks, dropping 50% since the election, despite more articles that are being published. Engagement is measured by interactions with articles posted, which includes likes, comments, and shares. That's all down, dropping 50%. And the survey data shows that Americans have grown weary amid what feels like a never-ending cycle of bad news. A never-ending cycle of bad news. And especially considering the cabinet appointees, the folks who are going to have a huge impact and effect on politics, not only that, your life and your livelihood. Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the most outspoken and most MAGA-like and most conspiratorial members of Congress, is now going to have an oversight role in this DOGE blue ribbon panel that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are heading up. And they have promised to go after political enemies and to go after the left. Listen, also, she's always on Fox News. Here it is.
Tell us what you see as the most government waste.
It's all over. Every single government department, program, grant programs, contracts, it is everywhere. And so when we look into a deep dive into this massive problem that's caused America to be $36 trillion in debt, we're going to have to go into all kinds of buckets. And that's how I'll be separating things on the oversight subcommittee on DOGE. We'll be looking at everything from government-funded media programs like NPR that spread nothing but Democrat propaganda. We'll be going into grant programs that fund things like sex apps in Malaysia, toilets in Africa, all kinds of programs that don't help the American people. I want to talk to the people at the Pentagon and ask them why they can't find billions of dollars every single year and why they fail their audit. But not just that.
So they're going after NPR and news organizations just in a time when you need the news organizations, the news media to be stronger. Journalists, it appears that they are becoming weaker. And it's not just Joe and Mika that people are criticizing, it's everybody. Here's the thing, a lesson in being informed without being inundated, okay? There was a study that was done by Roxanne Silver, a professor of psychological science and public health at the University of California at Irvine. And this is what it says. When an event happens that distresses people, like an election, those people consume more information about it. The pull to bad news is so profound that we do this even though it is physically bad for us. In one study, Silver found that people who saw a lot of images of the Boston Marathon bombing in the days after were more distressed than people who were at the actual bombing. Clinicians talk about this when people are anxious about something. They seek out information to sort of monitor their environment so that they don't encounter what they're scared of. It's sort of like being terrified of snakes, then being vigilant about snakes on your walks. Now, folks don't even have any interaction or any knowledge of the possibility of snakes on their walk. They're done with it. They think they know the snakes already and they don't want to see a repeat of it, let alone the possibility of being bitten. I think they feel that they have been bitten before. So again, is it the end? A lot of people have been touting or predicting the demise of broadcast news, cable news, even newspapers, for quite some time. Has the present now caught up with the predictions of the future? I'm not sure, but it certainly appears that way. You can be informed without being inundated, and people are starting to figure it out. That is why you must support independent media like this and my other colleagues who are here in independent media. We rely on you. We don't have large corporations behind us. We don't have large funding. And that way we get to be free and independent to be able to speak and say whatever we want without the influence of government, without the influence of corporation or bosses or the corporate overlord, as we say. So it's important for you to support us. So make sure you like and subscribe, and make sure you tune in and become engaged to help us grow our impact and influence as traditional media is starting to wane. The influence is starting to wane. People are catching on. Thank you for watching, everyone. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure you hit the like button. It helps us with the algorithm. And also, we'd love for you to become a subscriber. So hit that button too. We're live every day at 10 a.m. Eastern Time and 5 p.m. Eastern, so there's plenty of content for you to check out.